Yep, all right, great. So hello and welcome to our webinar today. We have a very hot topic ready for you today. Our webinar today will be your personal budget. What a great topic to go through, especially in the current times. So this webinar will run for approximately an hour and we will have time for questions at the end of our session. So if you'd like to pop your questions in the Q&A box for us, either during the webinar while you're thinking about them or at the end of the webinar is fine too. We'll make sure we have time to go through your questions today. You should automatically be placed on mute, but if you're not, if you could kindly do so we can speak while we're presenting without any interruptions, that would be great. This session will be recorded as well, just to let you know, and it will also be uploaded onto our website so that you can rewatch it at your leisure. So now to introduce your presenters for today's session. So your main presenter for today is Shannon Smith. Many of you may already have had the pleasure to meet Shannon and work with Shannon. Shannon is founder and managing director of Smart Business Solutions Group. Here at Smart, we can assist you with an array of services, including accounting, financial planning, mortgage broking, and also estate planning. So Shannon is a multi-award winning mortgage broker, accountant, financial advisor, and she also has her estate planning accreditation. Shannon's favourite reward, though, is working with our clients to achieve their goals, and a personal budget is the perfect foundation to begin this with. My name is Bianca Carroll. I'm your secondary presenter for today's session. I've completed my Masters in Financial Planning, my Financial Advisor exam, and also my estate planning accreditation. I'm currently in my professional year being mentored by the lovely Shannon, so I'm very fortunate to be working towards my goal of becoming a fully qualified financial advisor. And then it's always nice.
You've actually only got 5 more days to go, actually.
It's getting close. It's always nice to put a face to a name. So these are some of the faces of our amazing support team here at Smart. So these are some of the names that you may have spoken to over the phone, you may have met in person or communicated by email as well. So to cover off the fine print for today, this presentation contains general advice, does not take into account your personal situation, but we're more than happy for you to contact us and we can arrange a chat with you if you'd like some more personalised advice. So I'd now like to take this opportunity to welcome Shannon.
Great, thank you. Great, so now I found this quote by Walt Disney and I absolutely loved it, especially with everything that's going on in the market at the moment. I heard there's going to be a recession, but I've decided not to participate. And I think sometimes when there's a lot of doom and gloom in the, the news and all of that, it starts to make people think with this whole negativity. And those that have met me and worked with them before know that I do like to try and be positive with things, but I saw this quote and I just jumped on it. And that's what I'm going to run with as well. If we are going to have this recession that they're saying we're potentially going to have, I'm actually not going to participate and I'm going to keep positive and keep focused and control what I can control. So manage what I can control and keep that positive attitude. But to go through what we wanted to go through today, and I guess the feeling of why we put this this webinar together was really there's been a lot going on in the market. A lot of interest rate rises, expectation of another interest rate rise next year. And, and really want to kind of empower you all as to, well, what can I do? What can I control? And what changes can I make? Because there can be always improvements that we can all make on our own personal budget situation. So I really want to look at, clarifying your priorities and how do we pull that together, understanding what a personal budget is and the obvious and unexpected benefits. What are some of the components of the personal budget and getting down into some of the details? And I guess it's nearly even changing your mindset on some of the thinking on your budget items. We're not going to be here to say you can't buy that pair of shoes or you can't do this, but really trying to educate you and help you on being able to make some of those choices and then how to complete your own personal budget. So we will send out this webinar and you will get the budget template as well. And so this will be on our website. Bianca's going to go through how to actually put together a personal budget and how you can then keep yourself kind of accountable for it. What some of the next steps would be, how we can help if you need, and then open to Q&A questions as well. So some of the financial risks that we're seeing with the current market conditions, and this is what kind of triggered me to say, I want to talk to the masses, I guess, in making sure I can get out to as many people to really say that, there's been a lot going on with these interest rate rises. And I feel like, should they have done them, they've done so many over and it's consecutive. I feel like it's, it's putting a lot of pressure on people, but it slowly keeps happening. And should they have done it quicker and then maybe we'd be already in the turnaround? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but there's a lot of changes. So really looking at some of the financial risks, cash flow is going to be a tight one. The amount of additional money that people are paying, especially towards their mortgages. But I don't know about you, I go to the supermarket and I see some of the prices of some of the, like the capsicum, then I think I don't really want capsicum. With my dinner tonight, I'll have something else because of the prices that we're seeing. So the inflation, insufficient funds to meet, maybe whether it's paying your tax obligations or even some of the unplanned bills. And so we want to tap into some of those. Inflation and also this potential looming recession. Interesting, I had an economic update last week that said we are technically already in recession, but I haven't heard any levels of government talk about being in a recession. Just some of the debt and interest rates. And then also just touching on with everything that's going on at the moment, and I know it's not related to personal budget, but I did want to highlight on the fraud and the cybercrime. Obviously, we've seen that with two major companies of late, but not only that, just protecting yourself against some of these crimes and some of the stress that it has been causing, because we have seen a number of people fall victim to some of these types of crimes on a personal level. So starting back to looking at your objectives, and I guess the reason I say that is often you go into a budget and say, right, I'm going to cut all my expenses. But you need to first start by just saying, well, what are my goals? What are my priorities? What is important to me? If you cut every single expense and do nothing, I don't think you'll be enjoying life that much. So what is it that you can balance, and what are those, priorities that you've got? And maybe it's just adapting as to how you spend those. So I do wanted to just highlight at the beginning to say, it's not about never spending any more money. It is about trying to work out what is it that you can, what do you must have? Like, I must do this from a sanity perspective or something like that. And just remember, it is about balancing the finance side of it, but also balancing with enjoying life as well. It is interesting when you're coming to, and moving on to the next one, interesting when you're coming to, a lot of research has basically shown us that without some proper guidance, and even individuals often fail to identify as many as half of the goals that they later recognise to be central to their plans. And the reason I pull that in, you've got your personal goals, but the fact that you've actually turned up today to do a budget, what is your goal of your budget? Is it a case of wanting to cut back where you can so that you, maybe it's going towards your mortgage? Is it a holiday that you want to reward yourself with? But trying to identify what that goal is, and that'll really help move you towards achieving that goal. When we look at the financial goals, I always like to talk about 3 buckets. And this will link into your personal situation, but this is looking at the overall goal. So I always, I've got my 3 buckets or my 3 cups of saying, well, I've got my income generating cup or bucket in the middle. That's my employment or my business, but that's my income generating. And it needs to be the feeder to my day-to-day living. So day-to-day living also including your mortgage, your food, holidays, and that day-to-day. And then you've got the future, so the savings and investments, whether that be an investment inside of super or outside of super. So always thinking back to the 3 buckets, that links into your goals, but also links into what are you wanting to achieve from your own personal budget situation? What are you wanting to save? And so that you can actually afford more of what you've got going on. Now, one thing that was really interesting, some stats that just came out on financial advice and looking at, and it does go nicely into the personal budgets. It was interesting that 65.7% of Australians say that they worry about money at least monthly. Now, what we're hoping from today, and you'll go off and do your budget, is that we will empower you with your own budget situation so that you're not as worried about money, like 65% of the population. 23.5% actually worry about it daily, and 37.4% say financial issues have affected their physical health. And I do believe that to be It could be even a higher number, but I do believe that it can have a real impact, and especially also on the mental health. So what we want to help you with today is to hopefully empower you in your own budget, to look at your own budget and actually say, well, this is where we want to, where we want to kind of empower you to actually have that and feel comfortable on that side. So where do we start? Now, with the budget, a budget is basically telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. So, where do you want your money to go? Not where did it go? Now, there could be a reflection piece where you look at, well, where did I spend it and how can I then change it? But a budget is saying, this is the income I've got, these are my fixed costs, and this is where I want to go. So what is a personal budget? So personal budget is a finance plan that allocates future personal income towards expenses, savings, and debt repayment. So that's your personal budget. Some of you may have done this from a business budget perspective, but personal, here's my income, here are my expenses, and Bianca's going to go through in a lot more detail on the expenses for you and how to think about the different expenses. Here's what I want to put into savings. Now, some of those savings might be sliced into a bit at the moment with the mortgage, and here's then to debt repayment. So you've got your different parts. So some of the benefits of a personal budget, in addition to, I think, feeling better about it, as we saw those stats that we just saw, it does give you more control, keeps you more focused on your money goals and awareness of where your money goes. When you actually start tracking it, it's kind of a bit crazy when you realize how much you've actually probably spent on different things. And it will help you to build better money habits and then help manage your debt levels overall. A little bit extra even paid off on your mortgage can make such a huge difference to either the number of years that you've got your mortgage, but also the interest, and it will help you achieve your wealth goals. It will also flag for you and act as an early warning system, so that when you actually start to see expenses going up, at least you're now being able to react to it rather than really feeling like you're cranking up the credit card debt, which is what I think a lot of people tend to start, just keep putting it on credit card, and before you know it, it's ballooned out. It does become a bit of a communication tool, and it does provide you with more money if you stick to it. And ultimately, it does give you a better life. So thinking back to those goals and what you're wanting to achieve. And it will be as restrictive as you want it to be, but that depends on your goals. What was your goal? Is it just to pay expenses? Then that's the goal. But why do people often avoid a personal budget? It's just extra work, and maybe they don't love numbers as much as we love numbers, and that's probably the case with a lot of you. You've got your other jobs and you didn't sign up to be an accountant, but it really can help empower you. A lot of people hear the word budget and think bread and water. No, that's not the case. You might not know how to prepare one, but that's not going to be any of you, because we're going to get to the end and you will be able to. Fear of putting the subject of money on the table, or fear of what they might find. That fear of what you might find can be sometimes quite scary. Pride, don't need one, or just laziness. So hopefully the fact that you've turned up today, you're actually really wanting to go and get that budget going and trying to get that so that you get accountable for it for yourself, but also look at opportunities and make sure, you reward yourself as well. So how do I actually set up a budget? I'm going to pass you across to Bianca to let us know how we actually set up a budget.
Thank you, Shannon. So let's go through how we would set up a budget. So the first step in personal budgeting is to set up your 12-month personal budget with income and expenses broken down on a monthly basis. So this can be done in an Excel spreadsheet or using a personal budgeting app, or also you can use the personal budget template that we will provide you with today. And this is the one that we will demonstrate in a few moments' time. So firstly, enter your monthly income, then you enter your expenses line by line within different categories so that you can see where your monthly spending is for each category, and seeing how much your income needs to be allocated towards food, bills, childcare, petrol, and it can be very empowering once you actually put those numbers down and review and take a look at them and see where you're actually spending your money. And it's likely that you'll have a good understanding of your monthly income from your wages, drawings from business, rental income or investments. but you might not fully understand the extent of which you're spending that money monthly. So to get a better idea of how much you're spending and what you're spending it on, it's a good idea to start analysing your personal bank accounts and credit cards. And you can be prepared for a bit of a shock or a surprise in some categories, and that can be quite normal as well, so that's fine. And we're here to help if you do have any concerns with that as well. So if you would prefer to budget on a forward-facing basis, be sure to include big ticket items such as insurances, rates, school fees, maybe you have big holidays planned in the few months that they just before they fall due, so that you can budget accordingly for them and not have to get to that point where those big expenses come in and then you don't have that money set aside ready to go. So when budgeting your debt repayments, it's an opportunity for you to plan for increases or decreases as well, according to the cash surplus that you have in your wealth creation plan. So your personal budget goals may be to accumulate sufficient cash for savings or to invest further into a business or other investments. So this is your personal budget, and it really needs to reflect your goals and your family's goals. So when making a budget, it's important to know how to separate the fixed expenses from the variable expenses. So what is a fixed expense? So in simple terms, it's one that typically doesn't change month to month. So if you're wondering what a variable expense is, it's an expense that may be higher or lower from one month to the next month. So knowing how to include both fixed and variable expenses in your budget, it's important to avoid the overspending. And it can also help deciding on your income, of where you want to commit to repayments, savings, and other financial goals that you may have. So let's look at some examples of fixed expenses. So a fixed expense just means an expense in your budget that you can expect to stay the same or close to it over time. So when you sit down to make your monthly budget, you don't have to guess how much you're paying towards those fixed expenses. You can simply carry those over from last month's budget. So having one or more fixed expenses in your budget is a good thing from a planning perspective. So these expenses are more or less constant. Budgeting becomes more predictable. And aside from being roughly the same amount each month, fixed expenses may also be paid on or around the same date each month. So again, the advantage here is that planning out your budget may be easier to do with those recurring bill payments being paid or due on that same date each month. And if you budget from budget by paycheck or a schedule, automatic bill payments can also be another good idea of avoiding late payments and having those bills ready to go, and you know when they're ready to go and to be automatically taken and paid. So looking at variable expenses. So variable expenses are the opposite of fixed expenses. So they may recur from month to month, but the amount in that month may be different. So they may increase or decrease from month to month. So budgeting from variable expenses can be more challenging as you're not able to pinpoint exactly how much they'll add up to from one month to another. So if you're not tracking these variable expenses regularly, it could be easy to underestimate or overestimate how much of your budget could be allocated to these variable expenses. So this is something that you can use a budgeting app for, or a basic Xero subscription, or the template that we'll provide you with today to include those variable expenses so that you can plan them out more easily. So variable expenses can include essential expenses as well as discretionary spending. So for instance, if you get sick and you need a doctor to visit, this may be a necessity, but you weren't budgeting or ready for that. On the other hand, discretionary expense means anything that you budget for or spend money on that you don't necessarily need. So in other words, these represent the wants in your budget. So when planning your budget, needs are expenses necessary to survive, such as housing, food, utilities. Wants are expenses that better your life, but you could do without them. You may not want to all the time, but you could do without them. So everyone will have variables with their needs versus wants based on their budget. So for example, you may need runners, you may want the latest Nike runners, but you could still buy the runners, but you don't necessarily have to spend extra on getting the Nike runners if that's in your want list. So you could find a pair of runners on sale that you need and buy those, which fit into your budget. Another example is you need a roof over your head. That roof doesn't necessarily have to be a mansion for you to live comfortably. You also need food, but this also doesn't need to be fancy food to survive. So the needs are the basics that you need to survive with. So you need to be sensible, know your limits, define your needs versus wants criteria carefully, and we can live a healthy and fulfilled life without succumbing to wants. So how to budget for fixed and variable expenses. So forgetting to plan for both fixed and variable expenses in your budget, or not budgeting the right amounts for either one, can be a costly budgeting mistake. So if you have both types of expenses to pay each month, these tips can help you budget them more accordingly. So budgeting for essentials first. Most of the time, your fixed expenses are also your most important ones. A roof over your head, food, clothing, childcare. So it makes sense that when you're dividing up your income for the month, you make sure that these bills first take priority over any discretionary spending. Tracking of your variable spending. So if you're not keeping tabs on how much you spend for variable expenses, you could be setting yourself up for a budgeting failure. So keeping track of your variable spending can help you see how certain expense categories in your budget trend over time, making it easier to decide how much money should be allocated to them. Knowing your baseline. So this is really important. Having a baseline budget can help you, especially if you were to have your hours decreased or lose your job. So this is the bare minimum that you would need to spend each month to get by. Keeping that amount in mind can help you decide how much of your budget you can afford to dedicate to discretionary variable expenses. So one tip I've always worked with is when payday comes around, make sure you go and do that big food shop, get all the necessary food items that you need, pay those bills that are ready to be paid, fill the car with petrol, pay for the childcare needs. So that's all done. And then anything left over would be discretionary expenses. So as I've mentioned, we will be providing you with our personal budget template. So we'll have a look now in a moment at a live demonstration of our personal budget, so you can see how quick and easy this template is to use. So let me take a moment and just pull this across into the screen so I can show you all.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, Bianca, I mean, one thing I think, and maybe a lot of you thought when we went through the JobKeeper, when we had the pandemic and everything that happened, we were all in a situation where businesses were closed. Some people, jobs were lost or businesses slowed down. And all of a sudden that budgeting, until some of the JobKeeper came in, was absolutely critical. So identifying your expenses. Oh, go back, Bianca, it's all good. Identifying your expenses and where you're spending your money. I think a lot of people did change their spending patterns at that time.
Definitely. So this is our personal budget template here. So I'm just going to take you through a few mock data to enter into here. So if you're wanting to have this to start in, say, November, we'll pop in here the end of October. So you just select the drop-down boxes there for the dates. Oh, and I'll just go through. There are 3 sheets on this as well. So we do have, to begin with, the instructions for using this personal budget. The second sheet we have is the personal budget, which I'll go through now. And then the third sheet we have is the actual performance. So I'll go through in a moment once we've gone through the personal budget sheet. So to begin with, you pop in the date. So if you're wanting the personal budget to start in the month of November, as you can see here, we'll just pop in the end of October for that to begin in November. You can pop your name in here and then select begin budget. So when you select that, that will actually take you down to the first income box here. So in here, we're going to pop in an amount of that we receive $10,000 each month from drawings in the business. So we're going to leave the frequency as monthly, and in the amount, we're just going to pop the 10,000 in, click on enter. And as you can see, that will automatically run through each month because we've actually left the frequency as monthly. We're also going to pop in here that we get dividends in May and November of $6,000. So we'll go down to dividends and we'll actually change the frequency to manual. And you can see here as well, just while I have that open, we have a few different frequencies that you can use as well. So it's very easy to put in different amounts and different frequencies. So we've got manual, weekly, fortnightly, monthly, or annually. So I'm going to pop in manual. And then I'm actually going to go to November and put in $6,000. And I'm also going to go across to May and put in $6,000. I'm going to click enter and that will automatically calculate that for me in the income there. And then we're going to put in some expenses. So the expenses are listed in different categories, just as the income is listed in different categories. And they're also broken up into different sections. So we have expenses in household, food, apparel, children, medical, insurance, transport, lifestyle, debt repayments, and other.
And it's a good way, actually, when you look at those, because often you think, oh, I don't spend that much each month. And then you start to go through and go, oh, what about this expense? What about that expense? And, you know, and yeah, using that as a good base to then work out, well, do I really need to spend X amount on takeaway every week, or can I reduce that budget? Yeah.
It is a very interesting activity to pop it all in. So for mortgage in here, we're going to put an amount of $1,750 monthly, and that will recur each month in the budget. Going to pop in gas and heating of $290 a month. And then I'm also going to pop in cleaning, but I'm going to do weekly as frequency. And I'm going to put an amount of $75. And that will auto calculate what the monthly expense is for that. So you go through and you pop in all your different categories. And you can use the different frequencies and pop in the amount according to your income and your expenses. So then once we've popped in everything we need to pop in, we then go up to the top and you can see here an overview of your budget, and you can have a look at this in a couple of different ways as well. So at the moment we have it on annual. So we can see for these purposes of this example, we have annual income of $132,000. We've popped in annual expenses and that's added up to just over $28,000 for the year. So that's actually showing us an annual cash surplus amount there. So once you pop in all your income amounts, all your annual expense amounts, then that will show you what the surplus is that you have to save or invest this amount. And you can also have a look at that in a monthly figure as well. So if you come down here to this arrow on the left and click on that one, that will take you through month by month of your income and expenses and show you the cash surplus for that month. So this is your planning for your budget. So we can also then go into the next sheet, which is the actual performance. And I'll just, sorry, I just can't see that bit there. Slipped across, sorry. Can't find my...
Your mouse escaped.
Yeah, I was started my sheet, sorry about that. So if you go into the hiding, the actual performance sheet, and if you just pop a figure in here of actual, so say we did $10,000 of the actual drawing. So once you pop a figure in here and click enter, all the other figures that you had popped in the previous budget will come through here as well then. So you can actually see what you have budgeted, which is this column here for each month, and then what the actual is in this column here. So then you go through and you pop in your actual income and expenses for each month. And then if there is a big difference between the actual and the budgeted, then you go back to your personal budget sheet, and then you would adjust those accordingly so that your actual and your budgeted amounts are fairly similar.
Yeah, and as Bianca's shown, and I talked about earlier, that why do people not do a budget? Maybe it's a bit time consuming. There's a lot of work. It is one of the benefits is that I had talked about is in going through the personal budget, you may discover a lot of expenses. You may discover a lot of subscriptions. I have a thing where once a year I go through all my subscriptions to make sure I actually still need or want those subscriptions. There may be a lot of extra expenses, but part of it is that you actually may not, you may actually monitor your performance, like work out your budget for the year, have a plan. And part of it can be even about a bit of a self-education of it, so to speak, because you may do the actual performance. You may track yourself constantly and keep doing it. And we have clients that do that. We do have some clients that may do it for 3 months and then go, okay, now I can see where I'm, going out of my budget or where I can cut. And I'm now in, got that plan going. So whether you want to keep doing it is, it's a bit of work to do it from an actual monitoring the actual and the budget. Well worth it in the end. But if you think maybe that's just too much for you, at least doing it for a few months to try and track where are my, I say my money's going to go this, in this direction, and I still get to the end of the month, it looks like I'm going to have a surplus of, 7,635.
Where is that? Yeah.
And where is it at the end? Having that going back and having a look at where did it actually go to identify whether there are extra expenses that you didn't know about, should have known about, or just one-offs that maybe can be in there as well.
Yeah, it's a really good idea, and it gets it out of your head onto paper so you can actually see it, so you actually know where it's actually going. It's really good. And another idea is actually, Shannon was talking about reviewing subscriptions. Another idea is to review, your services like gas and electricity. That can save you. I've just done that. I've just got new providers. It's saving me about $1,000 a year. Another option is to look at your insurances, review your insurances, general insurances, home and contents, car insurances. That can save you, potentially save you as well. So I'm now going to go back to our other screen, and then I'll be pleased to welcome Shannon back.
Right. Thank you.
Up to the next slide for you.
No, that's great. So if you need any help with completing the budget template, do let us know, and we can assist. But I think it's in going through, you're already at step 1 turning up today. Step 2, in actually going through the budget, will actually could highlight and identify a number of things. When we look at, and there's a lot of talk at the moment with your mortgages and debt, and should we look at reviewing your loans, and when should you refinance your loans? So it's actually really not a bad time to now maybe think about having a look at refinancing. Once there's going to be another rate rise they expect next week, and then there'll be there won't be anything for a good 6 weeks, so to speak. That it may be a time to have a look, but you want to make sure that you get are you getting the low interest rate? Are you getting, is it better loan terms or features? Could reduce your mortgage repayment. So it could be that your loan that you take out now is another 30 years. But that lowers your repayment if that's going to help. May give you cash out for something you want to do, or debt consolidation. Switch lenders. There's a few nice fees, bonuses for switching lenders at the moment, and it could just also reduce fees. So it is something to think about, potentially reviewing your loans and having a look at what's going as well. The other part of your loans is also reviewing your loan structure. The number of clients I come across that don't have offset accounts, they may have a redraw account, which is good as well, but also to look at making sure you've got something like that. So any surplus funds, like I know one bank allows you to have up to 10 offset accounts, so that you can actually have money set aside for holidays and money set aside for, say, school fees, and all in the different accounts, but all of them more set against your home loan. So really worth having a look at your loan structure as well. So pulling that all together, the things that you need to do, what do we need to do? Track your spending and try and identify the leaks. I said you're going to have a surplus of 2,000 and you've got none. Why? Try and create a different strategy for your business and your personal budgeting. Sometimes in business, we might spend some extra money, but it's an investment. We get more income back and return from it. Personally, is that going to happen? You need to establish, you might have different strategies. Know and monitor where your equity is going. Put that line in the sand and go, well, are we going forward? And are we improving ourselves? And try and negotiate better deals with all your providers. Cancel things you don't need. If you're not using something, get rid of it. All these little bits add up. And review and reset monthly. If you do have a month that doesn't go according to plan, don't beat yourself up too much, reset, and then try it again And if you need, get independent accountability. If you need someone to, help make you do it and keep you on track with it. And I always try and say, bring a bit of fun and light to the process. How can you actually you know, I mean, maybe we enjoy accounting, but try and enjoy it a bit, but also to help you with it as well. Now, if you do need some help, obviously the free budget template, you can rewatch the video if you need, or you can give us a yell. If you do want a personal budget review and kind of financial coaching where we actually go through yours in detail, that's 600 plus GST, and we can go through in a lot of detail and kind of give you that kind of coaching as to how to approach it and going forward. Or if you do want full financial advice, if that's something you're looking at and you want to see, you know, what does this look like in the next 5 years? Where is my wealth going, and other strategies? That's from 4,000 plus GST. So we can certainly help you with that. But I'll open up now to questions just to see if we've got any questions. I can only see one question at the moment. So if anyone else, I'll go through that one. But if anyone else has got any questions. So just on timing, I've got a question on how often should we be reviewing our budget? So whilst you're monitoring it on a monthly basis, reviewing a budget, you may review it when you've got major changes, I would say. You may have budgeted for the year your fixed costs, as Bianca talked about. You've budgeted your variable costs maybe on a monthly basis. And unless you've got something that radically changes. So I would, and it's quite a simple budget template that, you know, if you get a notice that your mortgage has gone up or your rent has gone up, you can go in, increase the rent, increase the mortgage, and see what that does to your surplus or not, the deficit, and then you can always adjust it at that point. So do we have any other questions? No other questions? Okay. You'll also find this video will be on our website and on our YouTube. We've got quite a lot of different videos on our YouTube, especially about investing as well, also for your business side of things, but investing, insurances, and other areas, and obviously personal budgeting. But thanks very much for joining us today. Feel free to reach out to any of the team at Smart. We're happy to help you, and yeah, so try and be positive. If we're going to have a recession, just opt out of it, you know, keep positive and try and see what you can do, and control, you know, control and manage what you can control from that perspective. But have a great weekend, everyone, and thanks very much for joining.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.